Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So Governor Whitmer announced recently that 27 organizations around the state will be funded and serve as entrepreneurial hubs, providing comprehensive resources and support to small businesses. One of these organizations is LEAP, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. And here to explain the program is their Chief Equity and Development Officer, Tony Willis, and the Executive Director of the Lansing Regional SmartZone, Harrison Leffel-Jones. Welcome, Tony and Harrison.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So, Tony, tell the listeners who are not familiar with LEAP what your mission is and what kind of services you provide.
Absolutely. So those not familiar with LEAP, LEAP stands for the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. We are the Regional Economic Development Organization representing Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton County. So we do everything from business attraction, business retention, expansion, entrepreneurial, economic gardening, support, with a focus on equitable economic development as well. So we try to make our region prosperous for all and grow jobs, grow investment, and have an overall better experience in the Lansing region.
Fantastic. Excellent elevator speech. That's well done. And for those listening who don't know what LEAP is, you haven't listened enough because you guys are on regularly because of the fantastic work that you do. Harrison, though, is a rookie to the show, and I appreciate you coming in. So, Harrison, talk a little bit about what a Smart Zone is, and as Executive Director, what exactly is your role?
Sure. So the Lansing Regional SmartZone is one of 20 smart zones across the state of Michigan. They were set up in the early 2000s really to help commercialize technology from research universities out into the community. The Lansing Regional SmartZone historically has not had a ton of funding, just for a whole host of different reasons. And so over the past year and a half, we've come into quite a bit of funding, which allows us to really deploy a lot of great resources and programs to our high-tech, high-growth startups here in the greater Lansing region. So predominantly in East Lansing and Lansing, but we help startups from all across the Tri-County region that are looking to start their businesses, grow here, but also attract tech talent from all around the country and hopefully the world to the greater Lansing region.
Fantastic. Now, another group that I often have on board is the Michigan State University Foundation and Spartan Innovations and all of the folks underneath that. And they seem to be really deep in the tech space startup. Do you collaborate with them? I mean, is it a hand-in-hand kind of a partnership?
Yes.
Clearly, you're different organizations with different funding sources and tools, but how does that relationship kind of work?
Yeah, it's really part of the ecosystem here, right? Okay. So we work hand in hand, as you mentioned. One of the ways we do that is through the Lansing Regional SmartZone funding, which is locally funded through tax increment financing here in the region. We actually provide grant dollars to the Research Foundation for them to provide some of the great programs that they do to a wider diversity of founders here in our region. So it's really a symbiotic relationship, which is great.
Perfect, because I'm a big fan of both of you, and it's good to hear that you're playing well together. So entrepreneurial hubs, they're being created with the funding from the state and the MEDC. So kind of what is an entrepreneurial hub? What does it look like? How do you touch and feel an entrepreneurial hub?
Yeah, so entrepreneurial hub are designations from the state of Michigan. So during this budget cycle here, they had a proposal out there, RFP, where different communities can submit a overall program to support entrepreneurial development ecosystem in their own community. And that can be defined as a city, a region, a collective of municipal bodies together, all with the goal of servicing a collective entrepreneurial experience. And so we are one of those. You know, both LEAP is the economic development organization as well as the entrepreneur support organization representing all three counties. So we're kind of a crossbreed between those two organizations. So we are the entrepreneurial hub for our community, and we work with a lot of spoke organizations, which are the outside of that hub that really have a focus on the specific needs of different demographics, different founders, different type of businesses, different industries, but we are the hub itself.
Got it. And the steward of the cash, right? So you basically won the RFP through your kind of business planning. You submitted, hey, if you give us money, here's what we would intend to do with that. And you were chosen to be
that's correct.
The steward of that.
Yep, spot on, Chris. And, you know, it was a competitive process.
Yep.
You know, there were many, think how many applicants over the entire state. I think there's 80 something plus.
Yeah, it was 80 plus applications for more than $230 million applied for. When the pot was only $75 million. Right. So incredibly competitive across the state of Michigan to land one of these.
And you talk about tech. So was that your particular focus in your RFP submission, or did you need to be focusing on tech based on the RFP qualifications. Like I'm thinking if you're an EDO, economic development organization up in, say, the Thumb, maybe tech isn't it. Maybe it's agricultural business and startups and, those kinds of things. So is tech your thing, or was that part of this whole hub?
So tech could be a part of it, but wasn't limited to just tech.
Okay.
So usually the Smart Zone, as Harrison eloquently put, is focused on tech entrepreneurship. And there are existing infrastructure there. But through this new funding, through the ARPA dollars in the state of Michigan for the Small Business Support Hub Accelerator, it was using the infrastructure of the Smart Zone, but expanding the services to traditional businesses, non-tech businesses as well. So it could be a mixture of tech and non-tech as a whole. And I'll let Harrison kind of talk more about the application process, which is pretty phenomenal because we did get feedback. I can't say from who, but we got feedback that our application was a standout application. And it really became because the collective comprehensive approach led by Harrison, really, to make sure that we are inclusive and as a regional application instead of, there's over 80 applicants, and you imagine that's a lot to review.
Yes,
and each applicant wants their own thing. Well, we did a collective approach as the hub for our region. So
got it. We'll talk a little bit more about that, Harrison.
Sure.
What made it a standout application?
Yeah, really the vision for the application process was how do we bring our partners in from the very beginning? So as soon as it was announced from the state of Michigan that this funding was going to be available, we decided to say, hey, let's put this out to our partners and say, come in, let's have a collaborative conversation about what you would like to see out of this funding pod and how we can really mirror, again, those Smart Zone services for our Main Street, mom and pop, traditional service-based businesses. And historically, the state of Michigan has viewed those very separately. And how do we create a more collaborative and cohesive ecosystem? So we've called it the TREC Hub, so the Tri-County Region Resource for Entrepreneurs and Knowledge Hub, and really focused on bringing our rural entrepreneurs, our Main Street mom and pops, and our tech businesses all together so that they can do that peer-to-peer learning. So we've got programming from the Allen Neighborhood Center, from Downtown Lansing Inc.
I was going to ask you, give us some samples of those partners that you brought in. So DLI, Downtown Lansing Inc. Allen Neighborhood Center is perfect. Yep, exactly.
But even, St. John's Chamber of Commerce, Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce, again, kind of reaching out for that regional basis. And then we've also focused on our kind of marquee program is what we call the Funder Acceleration, which is an opportunity for businesses to get small grants to provide services. So if you need help on incorporation, marketing plans, website development, those kind of annoying nuisances that really help launch your business, we can help pay for those services, which is a great opportunity for them.
Awesome. Well, let's unpack that because that's the big and open-ended question here. So you fought and worked closely with these regional partners. You put your RFP in, you won. It sounds like in a landslide that you're going to get this corpus. Are you willing to share how much money you're going to be the stewards of that you have? Is it a year to deploy?
So it's a 3-year program.
3 year, okay.
So it's $3.5 million across those 3 years.
Okay.
$3 million of that is to programs and services to the small businesses, and then $500,000 are direct grants. So that's physical direct cash grants to businesses, obviously broken up over those 3 years.
Got it. And so now that you have all of this you have the business plan set up, that was the RFP, you now have won it and the money is coming or is here or however you want to say it. So what's the process now? So if I'm an entrepreneur listening to this and saying, I've got this great idea, or I'm already kind of doing this out of my garage or my basement or whatever, and I could use some support to go brick and mortar or to scale or whatever that might look like, what's the process? Is there like an application? How do people engage with you?
So currently right now, we are in the works of working out the contracts of all the different partner organizations, we're the hub and all the different spokes to that. So you mentioned Allen Neighborhood Center, MSU, Melanated Business Alliance, Transformation Gems, focusing on women businesses, women of color businesses in our community here. So a number of those spoke organizations, we're working on those contracts now. But if you're an entrepreneur that's looking for services, all those organizations still offer programs. These are just add-on and expansions of their programs, or maybe some new ones. So don't wait. The best way to stay informed is to follow LEAP at Pure Lansing on all social media platforms, and or the most efficient way is to sign up for our LEAP Lit LIT newsletter, which is a very comprehensive document that we send out on the first Wednesday of every month that highlights all the different resources, applications, and competitions and our grants that are available for different type of businesses. So LEAP Lit at our purelansing.com, that's our newsletter. that is the most way to stay up to date. But our timeline is hopefully by mid or end of first quarter is to have everything signed, drafted, program started in that frame. But if you're a current entrepreneur in the garage, in the basement, a home office, working at an incubator, there are plenty of resources that are active today that you can participate in. And then there will be even more coming up here in the next quarter of 2024.
Right. And just deeper levels of support, right? The more cash behind some of these, so maybe they can expand how many grants or loans or whatever, and whatever that might look like.
You're spot on, from the mentorship to the programs to some of these are launching new programs that might fill in those niches that haven't been had for a while now. And this is an historical level of funding for us in our region. It's been, I've been at LEAP just shy of a decade now. And when I first came in, there was larger grants from the SmartZone. Those are only for tech businesses though, right? And that was $500,000 every once in a while. That was a short period of time, and those went down from $500,000 to $100,000, and then a little bit lower than that. So this is since I would say 2013 or 2014, the biggest pot of funding coming to our region for all entrepreneurship outside of the COVID relief business dollars.
So now that you've won this RFP, you talk about these other 26, I guess if you're one of 27's groups that are being given some of this funding. Is there a lot of value in collaborating with other people as to how are you doing this, or are you now on kind of your own ship sailing in different directions, right? It's like, because, Cadillac might need these kinds of things, and Detroit might need these kinds of things, and Mid-Michigan needs these kinds of things. I'm just curious as to how collaborative all of this is at this point.
Yeah, at this point, I would say it hasn't been, wildly collaborative, but that's just because we're starting. I think that there's a really big move from MEDC and a lot of community partners across the state of Michigan to be Team Michigan first, and whether an entrepreneur shows up in the Lansing region or Cadillac or up in Traverse City, as long as they're growing and maintaining their businesses here in Michigan, that's a win for all of us. Right. And so when we look at the SmartZone networks, the small business support hubs, that's a really great opportunity for us to really show how do we continue to attract and grow those businesses here in Michigan, and wherever they end up, honestly, I'm happy for them. Obviously, we want to continue to grow them here in the Tri-County region, but if we are working together, that makes Michigan a stronger place and a more attractive place for businesses to start and grow here.
Right on. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And again, I just want to circle back around and make sure that I'm really putting the exclamation point on the end of a point that you made. So, this whole entrepreneur hub that we're talking about here is supplementing existing programs. And as you said, there might be opportunities for either LEAP or your partners to expand some of the offerings that they're already having. So if you're in Eaton Rapids or you're a minority-owned startup wannabe in St. John's or wherever, and you may know a little bit about the ecosystem of support that's already out there, tap them as you would otherwise. And you may find that your ability to win services or support or get access to capital is going to expand over the next 3 years because of this influx. And Leap Lit is the newsletter that you're going to want to sign up for to kind of get hit over the head once a week with offerings that are expanding.
My man, that's the summation. You got it.
Okay, and not to bury the lead or anything. I just wanted to make sure that I understood exactly what this all looks like, because it's. I really credit Mid-Michigan, and maybe I'm just a little naive because I live in Mid-Michigan, but it just seems like with Leap, as powerful as you have always been. And then the collaboration that you really honestly seem to be steeped in, plus the Michigan State University Foundation and all of the subsets underneath that, the ecosystem seems more robust here than any place I've ever lived, or at least was aware of. Do you find that Mid-Michigan is unique in the amount of support and interest in truly and sincerely fanning the flames of startups and tech startups and minority, and people of color and gender and all kinds of folks? Do you find that we're unique here in Mid-Michigan?
I'm jumping here than you two, Harrison. So I honestly do feel like we are unique in a very dynamic way. We are a region that is big enough yet small enough to have cohesion together, right? And that is accessible from many different fronts. So that's one of our strong suits here in the Lansing region. Over my time, I've seen the ecosystem grow dramatically, right? I use the analogy, we're going from chicken noodle soup to gumbo, Right? Chicken noodle soup is a disparate amount of noodles, pieces of chicken, a carrot here or there, and it's brothy stuff. Gumbo is more rich, denser. Things are butting against each other, more flavorful. That's the goal. And we have really become closer to a gumbo here in mid-Michigan. So we have so many different support organizations that have came up to be over this time frame and that have all found their own lane and hitting a stride and seeing success and really servicing their demographic and their clients they want to serve. And I feel like this type of funding is going to only enhance the stability, the level of output, and marketing. So some folks are just not aware, and from any small business, you think you're talking out there. You think I'm doing this and this post here.
Right.
Your audience is only yay wide, right? Yep. And there's always more. This actually gives them more leverage to grow that audience, which in hopes would be to serve more people.
And I like the podcast platform, and Harrison, I don't mean to cut you off with that, but I agree with you in that whether you're a small business or whether you're a large corporation, you tend to have blinders on. You only live in the world that your business puts you in front of, right? I mean, it really takes a discipline of continuing education and the ability to or the desire and the time creation to spin your head around and just say, what am I missing? Because everything's right in front of me. I got to deal with this pro forma, this problem, this HR issue, this quarterly earnings call, or if you're a chef trying to own a restaurant, it's like, I know how to cook great food and put it on a plate, but supply chain and pricing and lease negotiation and all the different things that go along with that, branding, marketing, all that kind of stuff is outside of some of the bandwidth. So you've really got to pay attention, and that might be one of the services that are offered with some of these funds that you guys are going to have.
Yeah, and I would just echo Tony's point, particularly into that same idea of, having the blinders on. So many times we talk with entrepreneurs who are like, oh, if I'd only known about this 3 years ago when I was starting my business. And so we're hoping that with more partners and the wider reach of this programming particularly, we can reach those people at the very beginning of their businesses to set them up on a really strong path to hopefully avoid some of those pitfalls that, any small business can fall into, whether you're high tech and scaling a B2B SaaS platform or if you're, cooking cookies, right? So how do you continue to evolve and adapt to those problems?
Developing that skill set as an entrepreneur, right? Because you said this perfectly, Chris, too. Whether you're a chef and you love the experience of cooking and developing cuisine or a dish, right? Which is your passion there. Running the business and the business side of it is a different skill set.
Yeah.
The payroll, the staffing, the hours, the supply chain, right? The legal costs, the leasing that you mentioned, all those. Those are all additional things that are away from your core passion, which is developing the good.
And I can't afford to hire people to do that. I don't have a big workforce.
Right.
I found that in my discovery just talking to dentists. I don't know why I just pulled them out of my hair, but I know personally a handful of dentists, and I realized that they struggle with the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like I went to school forever to learn how to work on teeth.
Right.
And then they send me out to go start a practice. And I've got all these other things. My skill set's here.
That's right.
And I need to have this big, wide scope. So, really, it's agnostic. It's not just restaurateurs, obviously.
Not at all.
It's all kinds of people who have a passion to start a business.
Because you always are focusing on the trade or trait that you really like, which is whether it's dentistry, whether it's developing or building an app or a service, from all those different aspects of the industry. But then the overarching is the overhead of running an enterprise, running a business, developing and deploying those services. So what we'll see here through all these services that will provide this Trek Hub grant, more of those wrap around to support the actual business infrastructure as well, because most entrepreneurs know the thing they're good at very well. It's the business infrastructure parts that need to be further sharpened.
Right. And that's one of the tools that's going to be in this that already exists in a variety of ways.
Yep.
But that's one of the areas that, people can pay attention by the Leaplet newsletter and realize that now that there are services, it's like, hey, I can get CPA services, I can get legal services, they can help me write a contract, they can help me negotiate a lease or whatever, because of this extra funding that Leap has won. On their behalf.
And to that same point about around the wraparound services, providing that technical assistance. So it's not just, hey, here's a grant, good luck, we'll see you in 6 months, tell us how it went. But it's like, let's actually make sure that you can implement that grant dollar effectively so that we see the return as the economic development community and the community generally, but that it's really fruitful for the businesses as well.
And my question was going to be, my final wrap up as we're running up against the clock, was about return on investment and measurement of success. How do you measure success out of a program like this? It's 3 years long. How do you plan to track that?
Yeah, so it's definitely, the standard measurements around, companies served, but particularly making sure that we're reaching out to underserved communities throughout our region. And that doesn't mean just, socially and economically disadvantaged people within our urban core areas, but that's also reaching out into our rural communities to make sure that, at the farthest reaches out in, Clinton County or down in Eaton County, that we're making sure that we're bringing those folks into those services. And really, one of the measures that Tony and I have talked a lot about is how do we measure not just the investment in those businesses, but also are they gaining revenue? Are they landing more customers?
Right.
Are they growing as an enterprise? And that's one of those kind of key critical issues. It's great to serve a business and give them some grant funding, but how do we make sure that 2, 5, 10 years from now, they're growing and successful businesses?
Right on. Well, along those same lines, I do want to take a nod to one of my sponsors. When it comes to managing your finances and planning for your future, I suggest you contact my friends at Whitmer Financial. Whether you're just getting started, getting ready to retire, or anywhere in between, Whitmer Financial can help you make smart financial decisions. Don't navigate complex problems on your own. Whitmer has the expertise to help you feel confident that you're making the right financial choices. Contact an advisor by calling 517-853-3367 or visit their website at wagoner-financial.com. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who could probably use some financial planning, no question.
No question at all. Absolutely.
Excellent. Is there anything we haven't unpacked about this awesome opportunity that LEAP has worked hard to achieve?
I think we did a real good coverage here for this, Chris. And, I want to make sure the exclamation points you put it, please follow the, LEAP Pure Lansing social media handles. Yep. PureLansing.com is our website. The LEAP Lit newsletter is the all-inclusive source of resources for any entrepreneur, small business out there. And, be on the lookout for amazing program offerings coming up in 2024 here.
Fantastic. Well, we've been talking to the Chief Equity and Development Officer, Tony Willis, and Executive Director of the Lansing Regional SmartZone, Harrison Leffel-Jones, from LEAP, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. Congratulations and job well done. Appreciate all you do for the community.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.